It's time for another Betfair season preview. Today we are going to talk about the St Kilda Football Club, a very interesting team going into 2023. And Daz, you've been following the Saints closely this pre-season. Can you tell me or give us a quick recap on how you think they went last season?
Yeah, it was never a dull moment, which is so often the case with the Saints. But started the year really well, top four halfway through the season, and then fell away badly to miss the eight. It ended up with Brett Ratton being sacked in the off-season, which surprised a lot of people. And Ross Lyon becomes the first man since David Parkin, no relation, to coach a club for the second time. David Parkin, obviously in the early 90s at Carlton. So a lot has happened, a few retirements as well. But yeah, they're a fascinating case study.
Yeah, as you said, a lot has happened. A couple of interesting list additions. Zane Cordy, who was a premiership player at the Western Bulldogs. And of course, Liam Stocker. That was a very public delisting from the Blues, but we do think he has a lot of talent and a lot to give it an AFL list. But in terms of the whole squad, who do you think is going to have a breakout year?
Yeah, I think Marcus Windhager has already been highlighted by Ross Lyon as a player that he feels he can really work with. He's a Ross Lyon type player, and that he's defensively minded, solidly built. Had a good year last year, played 18 games in a debut season. He shut Lachie Neale out of a game late in the year, kept him to a season low 16 disposals in that match. He's won St Kilda's time trial twice in the pre-season already, looking really sharp. So I think he's a guy that will develop as a player for Saints fans. And one who's been injured a bit, who's still pretty young, is Hunter Clark. They'll hope to get a full year out of him and he can improve.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Hunter Clark, who I've had a bit to do with over the past. He's obviously a very, very good player. He's had some concussion issues, so hopefully he can have a good season and stay onto the park. What about a best and fairest Smokey? I mean, I can't believe we're calling him a Smokey because he is a best and fairest winner, but at the Saints it's a bit of a different story.
Yeah, he'd be a guy that at the Saints you probably wouldn't consider too much in recent years. He's been serviceable since coming over from Fremantle, but probably a little bit underwhelming overall. But he did win a best and fairest at the Dockers, and his coach when he did that was Ross Lyon, who can obviously get the best out of him. And a bit of a barometer, Brad Hill, he averaged 24 possessions a game in the first 11 rounds last year when St Kilda were top four. He averaged just 18 in the second half of the year. He's a very damaging run and carry player, but if St Kilda aren't winning enough of the ball, it takes him out of the play a little bit. So getting the best out of Brad Hill will certainly help St Kilda play well, and that would translate into the best and fairest votes.
St Kilda are really interesting in the premiership market. They have an interesting position, and you've got some insight on them versus other clubs. Tell us how you think St Kilda are going to go and what you think of the market.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty around them with a change of coach and with some injuries to start with, and I guess the way they finished last year as to where they sit. But Max King's the big issue early, in that he'll miss at least the first month after having a shoulder reconstruction before Christmas. He was the second most targeted player inside 50 in the AFL last year, 173 times, but St Kilda scored a goal 20% of the time they went to him, which was ranked first in the comp. So Tim Membry was second on St Kilda's list for targets with 74, so nearly 100 less. So not having Max King means that they're going to have to completely transform it. They wanted to play Jack Hayes, but he's done the navicular in his foot, which means they're probably going to rely pretty heavily on Tom Campbell to do some ruck work early in the year, which means they can play Marshall forward, given they don't have Ryder either, and then guys like Cooper Sharman and Tim Membry and maybe Josh Battle going forward. So they're the things that Ross Lyon has to overcome. They were ranked 15th for scoring last year, and they lose their main weapon. So that's the challenge. On the markets, though, if you look at sides that finished around them, St Kilda were fighting the Bulldogs, Port Adelaide and Fremantle for spots in the 8 late last year, and Carlton to some degree. Bulldogs are $1.80, Port Adelaide $1.62, Fremantle $1.95, and St Kilda have drifted out to $4. So whilst I would agree that St Kilda are probably fourth in line out of that group, I'm not sure they're that far behind. So there's a fair bit of value, I think, in that. That would suggest that the Bulldogs, Port Adelaide and Fremantle might be light years ahead of them. I think that market's probably a bit too skewed.
Question without notice, just quickly, Daz. So obviously you're very close to St Kilda and you know how they're starting this year. Given their price right now, do you think that after 5 rounds, their top 8 chances will firm or drift slightly?
If they get results in the face of injuries, I think it would firm quite significantly. But the draw's not easy. They've got the Bulldogs and Collingwood, I think, in that first month, who both played finals, and Fremantle as well, another potential finalist. So, yeah, I actually think that first month, if it doesn't go too well for them, it probably won't move them too much out. But if they won, say, 2 or 3 of those games, I think they'd shorten quite a bit. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting watch.
So obviously trading a hallmark on the Betfair exchange, and it looks like there's a couple of options there. Wait till St Kilda potentially lose a couple of games, their price goes out a little bit, and then look to back a little bit later. That's all we got time for the St Kilda preview. Check out the Betfair Hub for all the rest of our season previews as we look forward to season 2023.
Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858.